Have you ever been at the airport preparing to board your flight when at the last minute you found out that there is no Wi-Fi on board? Well, I recently happened to experience this, and as I was preparing for my offline flight procedures, my son Alex, who was traveling with me, started asking me some really interesting questions.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, Alex, what are you doing here?
I want to tell a story.
Why don't we say the story together?
Okay.
Okay, so I was preparing to board the flight without any internet, which is
Yes.
difficult. And I was trying to send some emails, as you know.
How do you do it, though?
Email, well, there are some things you can do with email because there is this thing called Gmail offline and it actually works pretty well.
Yeah. What about notes?
Notes, well, there is this other tool called Evernote. I was setting that up. I can do some offline note taking as well.
Yeah. And ChatGPT?
ChatGPT. You know I love ChatGPT, right?
Yeah. But you don't let me do it for my homework.
For your homework, no. But for my work, it's okay. Well, so here's the thing. ChatGPT, I couldn't use it on the flight.
Yeah.
Because, you know why?
Because there's no AI without API.
There is no AI without API. You got that, Alex? Well, you know, Alex is absolutely right. There is no AI without API. And in fact, there is not much modern digital experience without API. Even if I take that flight I had, before I had the flight, I had to take an Uber. Ordering that Uber is an API call. I then arrived at the airport. Ordering food, I was using my app, an API call. Then when we arrived, to actually get all the pre-custom check-in, there is a machine. Guess what it does? API calls. And then even the custom agent, when they're verifying your passport, a set of API calls. Now, as much as behind these digital touch points, we know there is a mountain of APIs. But you know what I think about when I use all these digital touch points? It's not the APIs, it's not the applications, it's the teams. It's the application teams that are building those apps and the interactions between them that inevitably shows through the actual app experience. It's the infrastructure teams and the long hours they put with those P0 incidents that are happening. But you know, one team that we don't talk about nearly enough is the developer platform team. The developer platform teams act as the glue between all the app teams and the infrastructure teams. They act as the enabler that make all of these capabilities happen. And what I find interesting is that we have been through a history of developer platforms. If I go back all the way to 2010s, we had the initial generation of developer platforms, which was really we called platform as a service. This was the time of Cloud Foundry. This was the time of OpenShift, the first generation of OpenShift, which didn't have any containers involved. And it was all about abstracting everything. It was a black box. Developers came in with a unit of deployment, pressed a button, and supposedly everything got deployed. But what happened, what I think we learned, was that that was too much abstraction. We needed to have more visibility into interactions of the app, and we needed to give developers more freedom. And then came Kubernetes. And with Kubernetes, we went all the way to the other side. What we did with Kubernetes, we found a tool that we thought of as the platform, and we gave all developers full access to networking, to storage, details, and that turned out to be too much. It was too much complexity that actually slowed down developer teams. And I think we're at a stage here, which we're seeing a third generation of developer platform teams. This is a generation that's looking at services and APIs as the core objects that they need to be focused on, and enable developers to have architecture freedom, to have language freedom, to be able to pick their technology choices while ensuring they follow certain guardrails for quality APIs so that others can reuse those APIs and they can produce great experiences. Let's talk about some of the ingredients of creating this type of third generation platforms that we have seen from our customers. The first, as I said, is this focus on APIs and services. The reason for this is simple. It's because as long as you ensure that the contract between applications, the contract even within the services of the applications is well managed, is well defined, it's of high quality, of high reliability, the backends can change, the implementation can change. That's okay. So focusing on making sure you know what those APIs are like, they have the right level of quality, they have the right level of security, that's what's important. Well, how do you do that at scale? We know that modern applications have dozens, if not hundreds of services. We know that modern applications undergo hundreds of changes per week. Well, that's where the second aspect of modern developer platforms come in, and that's automation. Everything needs to be automatable, and you need infrastructure and runtimes that can actually adhere to this type of automation. SecOps, DevOps, GitOps need to be enableable through the CI/CD pipeline. Which brings us to the third aspect. All of this needs to be done with express lanes that enable development teams to come in and self-serve. They shouldn't have to open tickets. They need to go in and self-serve and have access to the right environment. And the infrastructure teams need to be able to plug into this platform. This is what we call federated governance. Now, to hear firsthand what it feels like to operate a modern developer platform, I had the occasion to chat with Surinderjit Sandhu from BCG, the Boston Consulting Group. BCG is a global management consulting firm, and Sunderjit is responsible for platform architecture at BCG. Let's listen to that conversation. All right, I'm here with Surinderjit Sandhu. And Surinderjit, it's been a long journey. We've been working together for, I think, 4, maybe even 5 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Now, in that journey, I know we've stayed close partners. Can you tell us a little bit about your role at BCG and how things have been going around your mandate? It would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, sure. And great to see you again, Reza. It's been very busy few years at BCG. It's going to stay busy. Things are going well. You know, we've had a big push into the cloud. We've really modernized how we build applications, how we architect applications for use within BCG. Part of that has been our container app dev platform that I'll touch on a bit more in a moment. I myself work as part of our cloud platform portfolio. So our role is to support the use adoption of the cloud, you know, support teams, how they build applications, support standards, and really help, you know, help us accelerate. Myself, I run our platform architecture COE, and I have a team of architects that really work to support those goals, you know, in different skills. I think we've really been focused on development standards, accelerators, and building components and capabilities that let teams accelerate. You know, we really want to take away all the pain and the hard work from how teams have to do stuff to get something into production. For any sort of enterprise is always a challenge. So what we're focused on is really building those accelerators. You know, as part of that, we built our app dev platform, and you know, some of that is about modernizing how we build apps, applying guardrails, having a DevSecOps process as part of that. And, you know, building an API ecosystem has been very critical as well as part of this platform. You know, we've gone from sort of, you know, a small amount of API traffic to now being API first. And, you know, API first is now the standard of how our apps are built and how our systems communicate. And that's been a massive change and also a key part of the accelerator, I would say, at BCG.
Very interesting. And tell me a bit about how you think about, you know, as a platform team, how do you think about the different life cycle of the application development, the teams you serve?
So, you know, what we want to do is get teams being able to build apps as fast as possible without having to worry about all the plumbing, all the governance and security standards around that. So for us, it's really providing a runway for teams to be able to build apps to a certain standard publish them onto our platforms, um, and really get them into production as fast as possible. So, as part of that, we built out an app dev platform, container-based, that's wrapped with all sorts of tooling, all sorts of monitoring, um, an onboarding and training process for teams to leverage those apps. Sometimes, teams don't need to know the ins and outs of how things are specifically working. As long as they're aligned to our standards, then, they're going to be successful in terms of using our platforms.
Got it. And how about the running and the governance cycle of it?
So in terms of that, yes, I mean we've built a lot of monitoring and a lot of governance in terms of how apps can be run and are run. Once again, we try to make that as lightweight as for the development teams as possible.
For the app teams, for sure, right? But who's responsible to make sure things are running, with high level of scalability, reliability, resilience, and so on?
So that's a combination of our platform team that basically builds and runs our app dev platforms. We have an L2 team that monitors those systems. And also the application teams as well have a responsibility in terms of, monitoring and understanding what's going on in their applications running on the platform. So it's a combined effort. We have a responsibility model and, different people play, different teams play a different part of that overall success.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So it's a shared model, which is great.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about, we've been together, as said, for over 4 years. Tell us a bit about Kong and how Kong has been able to help with your journey.
Yeah, so Kong really is our standard API gateway for us internal applications at BCG. We've baked that into our actual app dev platform. It's part of our development process, part of our deployment and run process. So for teams deploying applications, they essentially, follow our patterns and their APIs get published through a governance, through a security process, and then are available for consumption. Kong's been great because it has a plugin ecosystem. It lets you develop your own custom plugins. So we've really utilized that to bake in those security standards around how APIs can be consumed and reused across BCG.
And tell us a bit about Konnect. You've been moving to Konnect recently, right?
Oh, yeah. So Konnect for us was really about reducing a couple of things, I think. One was reducing overhead in terms of managing Kong instances. We've got a large number of Kong instances. Some are shared, some are dedicated for specific use cases based on governance and security requirements. Konnect is really now letting us, as we migrate to Konnect, providing us a control plane view across all these instances of Kong that we're using across BCG. So, we like it from that perspective. It's also reduced our management overhead of Kong running on our platform, which we also like as well.
And do you use some of the capabilities around analytics and troubleshooting and so on?
Absolutely, definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's really been a key part, being able to see the metrics in one place, providing, access to development teams to be able to see those as well themselves is something that, once again, we're always getting teams to be self-service as much as possible.
Great. And then last question, AI obviously is the topic of the decade, perhaps even more. What is the intersection of AI and APIs as far as you see it?
So yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, it's the hottest topic at the moment. We're working ourselves on a whole range of projects within BCG, small, medium, and large. Once again, it doesn't fundamentally, I think, change in a lot of ways how you build applications. APIs are still there, and the traffic between different parts of your AI system may well be API based. So for us, we're working on building, AI enablement platforms to let our engineering teams build the right AI solutions for BCG to let our teams operate more efficiently and more effectively. So for us, we're looking to see how we can leverage Kong as part of that journey as well. We're excited to see what Kong is releasing in terms of its AI, API gateway roadmap. And yeah, we're looking to see how we can leverage that.
Awesome. Listen, it's been great working together. Thank you very much for making the time today. Looking forward to your continued success at BCG, the platform team. And yeah, thank you for your time today.
Right, great to see you, Reza. Thank you.
Great. this was a very insightful example of how modern platform teams operate. And as we heard from Surendrajit, modern platform teams operate in an API development lifecycle that starts with the development of APIs, development of apps and APIs, then actually running the APIs on a solid infrastructure, and then platform teams that enable the building and enable the running. Now, what we're going to do for the rest of this presentation is talk about the properties of each of these phases that make these modern platform teams successful. And in doing so, I am very excited to make some really, really interesting announcements around our products, around each of these phases that will enable you to actually deliver each of these phases even better. Let's start with the build phase. The build phase is all about enabling API and application developers to create high-quality APIs and then to build their apps in an effective and efficient manner using APIs as building blocks. So how do you do that? Well, when we talk about consuming APIs, of course, Kong Insomnia comes to mind. Kong Insomnia is the #1 open source API tool out there. And we have been innovating with Kong Insomnia over the years. Last year alone, we released the Kong Insomnia 8, just a little bit less than a year ago, which had capabilities around single sign-on, RBAC, and also enabling multiple organizations. That was a big release for us. We followed that up with Kong Insomnia 9. And Kong Insomnia 9 added even more capabilities around scripting, around API mocking, around storage control, so you could use either your local storage, your Git storage, or our cloud storage. This was a major release for us. And today, I'm excited to announce another breakthrough release of Kong Insomnia. This is Kong Insomnia 10. Kong Insomnia 10 introduces a number of really game-changing capabilities for developers. It brings in something we call Collection Runner. It brings in something we call AI Runner. It has invite control. And by the way, it introduces a 3 times improvement in performance. And let's talk about two of the highlights features. The first is Collection Runner. Collection Runner enables developers to build their tests as a set of API calls that we call collections. And as they do that, they can visualize the test. And here's the interesting thing. With Insomnia 10, developers can build as many collections and run as many collections as they want without paying a single cent. All the collections from 10 to 100 to 1 million, you can run it for free. This is available today. The other capability is AI Runner. Now, we heard Marco in his keynote talk a lot about AI Runner. What I find really exciting about AI Runner is that it enables developers to accelerate their development when they use LLMs. We know that LLM APIs have a generally high latency. So how does a developer who wants to actually build an app and is testing these API calls accelerate that? Well, that's through the AI Runner. Through the single toggle, semantic caching is enabled, and a lot of the API calls to the LLMs start actually taking a lot less time and therefore actually accelerating the developer's productivity. Now, we talked about consumption of APIs. But what about building the API? What about the API provider, the creators of the API? How do we accelerate their capabilities? How do we make their life easier? Well, look, the API implementation, what goes behind the API, this is going to be all about what the developers are focused. They need to focus on their trade, on the business logic. They know their stuff. But every single API has a set of concerns that we don't want to bother our development teams with. How are we going to do authentication? How are we going to do authorization? How are we going to do request and response caching, retries? How are we going to do transformations? Well, for those capabilities, by the way, we need to do it for every single protocol as well. Not just REST, not just HTTP, gRPC, async APIs, WebSockets. Well, of course, this is where the power of Kong Gateway comes in. Kong Gateway essentially provides developers with the ability to abstract all of these capabilities with a single API call. And this is where all of the plugins that Kong Gateway has brought in come in. The hundreds of official plugins that we have out of the box and the thousands of community plugins provide all of the capabilities and concerns that I just talked about. Now, this is what we've learned from you. We've learned that the ability to install Kong by itself as a packaged product is good. We've learned from you that the ability to have the Konnect hybrid topology that enables you to run the data planes wherever you want, and we operate the control plane, is even better. And we've recently heard from you that the dedicated cloud gateway capabilities that we introduced last year also improves things because we host everything in an isolated, fully isolated cloud environment for you. But you also told us that you need yet another topology. You need a topology of convenience for developers, where they don't have to worry about the cost of the gateway, about provisioning it. It just needs to happen at a snap. Within an instant, they get the gateway and all of the capabilities we just talked about. Well, you told us, and we listened. And today, we are introducing Konnect serverless gateways. Konnect serverless gateways give that convenience, that instant access to a gateway environment that might not have the same SLA guarantees as the previous topologies I just talked about, but yet provides at the fingertip of a developer the access to all of the gateway capabilities we talked about so that they can build their APIs better. So serverless gateways are coming very soon. Stay tuned, and you can go use it on Kong Konnect. Now, let me switch to a demo of all of the capabilities we just talked about around the build phase with Simriti Jaggi. Simriti, all yours.
Thanks, Reza. Hi, I'm Smriti, a product manager for the Konnect platform. Today, I'm going to be showing you what's possible when you treat Konnect as a platform, not just as an application. If you were at API Summit last year, you'll remember the Kong Airways demo from Reza's Keynote. Well, Kong Air have adopted Konnect wholeheartedly and have actually outgrown the UI that we provide for some of their use cases. Kong Air's platform team provides a serverless cloud gateway per API for development and a dedicated cloud gateway per team for production. However, managing all of this manually takes a lot of time. Fortunately, Konnect has extensive APIs available that enable you to achieve your use case easily. Kong Air have built their own internal development platform on top of the tools that you use every day. It boosts developer productivity by pulling together Konnect and GitHub to make building a new API very simple. Let's give it a go. We're going to bootstrap a new API from a new team by filling in a web-based form, which will provision a serverless cloud gateway for development, a dedicated cloud gateway for production, and a new GitHub repository that's pre-configured with all the GitHub actions needed to deploy the API. Let's take a closer look at the configured CI/CD workflow. We can see that we're using Deck to convert the project's OpenAPI file to Kong configuration. This way, the API development teams don't need to know anything about Kong when they're getting started. They have a faster go-to-market by simply focusing on the APIs. If we look at Konnect, we can see our development and production control planes. The development control plane uses Konnect's new serverless gateway, offering the perfect mix of convenience and cost efficiency. The production environment uses dedicated cloud gateways deployed in regions all around the world across multiple cloud providers. High availability in just a few clicks. Going back to our development environment, we can see that the serverless control plane has a service and a route configured, but it also has a rate limiting plugin. Where did that come from? It turns out that the Kong Air platform team has specified a global plugin for all development environments. In this case, 1,000 requests per minute, as the dev environment is not as powerful as the production. At this point, all the infrastructure has magically appeared for the development team. The team is happy as they don't need to worry about any infrastructure. They just build their API, push to GitHub, and it magically works. Let's fast forward a few weeks and take a look at the API that the team has built. We can see that they've updated the OpenAPI spec and added lots of endpoints, all of which are automatically deployed on the dev gateway. The team has been testing their work as they built the API using Insomnia, Kong's best-in-class API design and testing tool. You can see that they've been calling various endpoints. Let's take a look at the flights folder. If we make an API call to list flights, we can see 2 flights returned. This is a great way to test the API manually, but it won't scale to hundreds of endpoints. Thankfully, Insomnia 10 has added support for API testing. If I click on the Scripts tab, I can add an after-response script that runs a test against our API. Now, when I send the request, you can see that the test is executed and that Chicago is in the list of destinations. As you can see, the team has added post-request tests as well to all of their API endpoints. You can perform more complex assertions too. Let's take a look at the patch, which checks if the flight destination has actually been edited. Yep, it has. The flight is now going to Los Angeles. Finally, running these tests one by one is cumbersome. That's why Insomnia comes with a built-in collection runner, which, as Reza mentioned, allows you to perform unlimited test runs. Let me run the flight API tests now. Yep, all green. We're good to go to production. That's all from me. Back to you, Reza.
Thank you, Smriti. That was great. Let us now switch to the second phase of the modern API development lifecycle within a modern platform, and that's the run phase. Here, it's all about having hardened, reliable, secure runtimes. That's where your APIs are getting processed. That's what every single business-critical transaction gets processed, and it needs to get processed with high speed, with high security, with high reliability. And of course, when we think about those properties, we think about the Kong gateway. And today, we're introducing a major release of the Kong gateway 3.8. Kong Gateway 3.8 introduces a lot of new capabilities. I will not be able to go through all of them today, but there will be a breakout session that you can listen to for all the details. The highlights of it, though, we have incremental configuration. We're extending our OpenTelemetry support. We've had tracing, as you know, but we're adding logs and metrics. We're adding something that I think is fantastic. It enables Kong gateways to operate when they're working with Konnect in some setups without the need for Redis and without the need for having an external secret manager like HashiCorp Vault or AWS Secret Manager, because all of them are now going to be provided by Konnect for certain use cases. And look, the list goes on and on. Kong Gateway 3.8 is a major release. I want to talk a bit more about this incremental configuration update. Now, look, the mechanics of that is that in a hybrid deployment, whether it's Konnect or fully self-managed, what happens is that not the entire configuration is passed from the control plane to the data plane. But in some ways, this is the boring intricacies of how it actually works. What is really interesting is the amount of improvement this introduces around CPU and memory usage. And when this matters is when you have really high-scale deployments. Now, you might not have that level of high-scale deployments with millions of API calls that are being processed at any given time across thousands and thousands of different endpoints. But many of our customers get there. And when they get there, even that P99 latency of a single data plane really matters. So believe me, if you get there, you will appreciate this feature. And here's the type of improvements you're going to be able to see. We tested with this high level of configurations, the Kong gateway. And you see in 3.7, compared to 3.8, the CPU usage is flat in 3.8, even with all of the changes going on. And this is now available with every single topology of the Kong gateway, whether through Konnect Hybrid, Konnect Dedicated Cloud Gateways, Konnect Serverless, and of course, the fully self-managed environment. Now, speaking of topologies and speaking of Konnect Dedicated Cloud Gateways, our next exciting announcements in the run realm is updates to the dedicated cloud gateways. Now, let's step back. Dedicated cloud gateways provides you fully isolated, enterprise-grade SLAs, enterprise-grade capabilities of the Kong gateway with a single click across any different region of the world. We supported off the bat a set of regions last year. Today what we're announcing, and they're by the way all on AWS, today what we're announcing is we're extending this set of regions, but not only extending this set of regions on AWS, we're also introducing the capability fully supported on Microsoft Azure. And that brings us to the govern phase. Govern phase is perhaps the most important phase of the modern API lifecycle when it comes to the modern developer platform teams, because this is where the magic happens. This is where, as a platform team, you're providing those express lane journeys to your API creators, to your API consumers, while providing the run phase as a plugged-in infrastructure that runs these things. The two exciting announcements on this. Let's start with the first one. The first one is advanced analytics. With our Konnect advanced analytics capabilities, it all comes down to streamlining troubleshooting. If an issue happens with your APIs, you can come into Konnect, and within seconds, you can isolate the requests that are causing the problem, drill down into that capability, into that request, see what has happened, see all the context of the information of that request, and be able to troubleshoot it really easily. And there's more capabilities coming on top of that. Debugging capabilities are coming soon on top of these capabilities, and we store all of this information for 14 months. Which now brings us to the last part of the govern phase and our announcement. And for that, I'm going to step back. I'm going to step way back. And I'm going to talk to you about dark matter. Now, we know that the universe is made mostly of this thing we call dark matter. And what's interesting about dark matter is we know it's there, but we can't see it. We can't do anything with it. And what I hear from our customers on a regular basis is that they have a great deal, a lot of dark matter APIs in their environments. They have APIs that they know are there, but they can't manage it. They have no idea what shape they have. They have no idea who their owners are. And this is a real problem because APIs gives you access to functionality, to data. Imagine if one of those dark matter APIs is not secure or is not reliable enough, but is being depended on. Well, this is where the Konnect Service Catalog comes in. And I'm really excited to announce that the Konnect Service Catalog is now available as beta to all of our customers. You can just go try it right away on Kong Konnect. What Kong Konnect Service Catalog provides is the ability to actually discover all of your APIs, dark matter APIs, as well as the APIs you know about, curate them, catalog them, and govern them with scorecard capabilities, with ability to integrate and add their different facets like the different infrastructure or PagerDuty or GitHub repository they're about. Let's talk about how the dark matter discovery works. The Konnect Service Catalog has integrations, discovery integrations. We announced one of them with our partner Traceable earlier on. And that is modular, so it's pluggable. You can have more. Different gateways can plug into this. You discover these APIs, then they get into the catalog, then you can curate them, and you decide when you want to manage them through a gateway or a mesh. And even at any point, you can take those and bring them to a higher level of promotion through portal and API productization. This should be a game changer in discovering your dark matter APIs, making your environment more secure, and as a platform team is an essential governance tool. So let's see all of this in action around run and govern phase with Gabriela Angiolillo, who's going to tell us more, show us a demo, and tell us more about all these capabilities.
Hi, welcome back to Kong Air. With the Konnect platform, organizations can do more with less as it's built for developer self-service. Today, I'm going to show you how to take an API to production. Publishing an API is simple and easy. As you can see here, I first select how the API consumer should authenticate, and then I click Publish. Publishing does two things. First, it does the obvious and publishes the API to the portal. And second, it syncs the gateway configuration to the deployment. Before I show you the public portal, let me show you something else that happens with publishing. Remember when Smriti deployed to the serverless gateway and rate limiting was automatically added? The same thing happened when we published. The only difference is because this is a production deployment, Redis was used to store the rate limit counters rather than them being stored in memory. Since we're using Redis, we need to authenticate Redis with Konnect using a password. Typically, we'd store that password in our cloud provider's secret management system or spin up the deployment of another vault. Instead of doing all that work, with Konnect, we keep our secrets secure using Konnect's new configuration store. Now next, let me show you the public portal. We've been given early access to Konnect's next generation developer portal. I couldn't be more thrilled that Kong has allowed us to give you a sneak peek. Kong's developer portal is built to delight developers. Using the tooling provided, we're able to craft pages tailored to our developer audience. There are both pre-built components and custom options to develop the exact pages we need. Developers using our portal find the open API renderer easy to understand. If you've ever used Swagger UI in the past, I'm sure you'll agree on just how much nicer the experience is. With the Konnect platform, the experience isn't just useful and delightful for external developers. When I'm developing at Kong Air, I frequently use LLMs. Here I can see all the different AI providers, such as OpenAI and Anthropic. With machine learning, we all know that taking a machine learning service to production isn't simple. To help, Kong provides AI plugins out of the box. One of my favorites is the semantic caching plugin. It can identify similar customer prompts and return cached responses to them. We find about 20% of the customer prompts are similar, so it's a noticeable improvement in speed for end users and a decrease in cost for us. Now that the Flights API is in production, I closely monitor its performance with Konnect's Advanced Analytics app. I can see API use and quickly spot any anomalies. I review the API requests and explore the dimensionality of the data. I'm quite interested in the HTTP response codes for my APIs. There's a lot of 200 OKs, but there's a few too many 404s. I use the analytics request functionality to dig into the 404 requests and understand what's happening. We quickly find that the 404 responses are for people scanning my API for vulnerabilities. While I've covered a lot of ground here, the Konnect platform offers so much more for managing APIs. I saved the best part for last, Konnect Service Catalog. It's a system of record here for all our APIs. I tell people, just as important to know the people and the laptops at your company, it's critically important to know your full API topology. Konnect Service Catalog seamlessly discovers all our APIs and provides rich metadata on them, such as a list of all the PagerDuty incidents. Although we're early in our adoption of the Service Catalog, we're already seeing developers reuse the APIs here at Kong Air. For us, Kong Konnect is our end-to-end platform for connectivity.
Thanks, Gabriela. This was a great demo. And to make all of this very concrete, I had the chance earlier to speak to Kyle Steppel, who is a platform engineer at Trivent. Trivent is a non-profit Fortune 500 financial services organization. Let's have a listen. All right, Kyle, it's great to be chatting with you today. Really looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for having me.
So, hey, let's start. We've been talking a lot about developer platforms and modern developer platforms. I was hoping you could tell us a bit more about the developer platform at Trivent, given that you and team are responsible for that platform.
Yeah, so we're actually really responsible for all of our gateways here at Thrivent, along with our MQ platform. So IBM MQ, RabbitMQ, Kafka. And really our big thing is developing that platform so that it helps developer-centric, right? It allows our developers of 500, we have roughly 550 developers here at Thrivent. And it allows us to then have a seamless platform so that they can help to, reduce or increase speed to market And that's ultimately the goal of everyone's, problem here is trying to get how can we get a product out to market faster. And that's really what our ultimate goal is when trying to look at our platforms that we're responsible for.
Cool.
So, for example, I mean, I guess I can give you a little more statistics. We have roughly 1,500 APIs that are in dev through production, and over, like I said, 550 developers across our organization here that are developing on our platforms.
Great. And what's about the rate at which you're acquiring new APIs?
Roughly about 10 a month that we're rolling out.
That's awesome. That's great. And this seems like your platform is being used. You're serving effectively the application development teams. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, our direct customers are our application teams and our developers, and obviously they're serving our broader community of our FRs and things of that nature. But our direct customers that we're trying to impact and that we're trying to help out is our application developers, and how can they reduce or increase that speed to market ultimately.
Very cool. And help me understand, we've been together. I think you've been a valued customer of ours since 2018. Help me understand how Kong and Trivent have been able to partner together in enabling your platform.
Yeah, so like you said, we started here in 2018 with actually Kong Community Edition. And that was really when we were dipping our toes in the containerized space. And so once we got there and we realized that Kong was the product that we wanted to go forward with, we actually moved to Kong Enterprise. And that gave us all the functionality that we needed, with the additional plugins and things of that nature to really help speed up that development. And within the last year, actually November of last year, is officially migrated over to Kong Connect, which was fantastic for our development community. And we were actually able to migrate 1,500 APIs with 0 production outages real time. And so this really, with the one control plane, it allows for developers, it's a one-stop shop where they can see not only all of their APIs across the organization, across all environments, it's in one control plane with analytics and with their developer portal. So now they can pick and see, hey, this team over here is running this API, we can leverage this. And it allows for them to really not have to have redundant code out there across our communities.
That's awesome. That's great. And how long did it take to migrate all those from Enterprise to Connect?
We started, I believe, in building out our first environment in about middle of June, and we were officially live in production in the 1st of November.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was a big feat. Like I said, for 0 production outages or anything of that nature, it was a huge win for us.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, maybe looking a little bit at the future, can you tell me more about what's next in store for the developer platform at Trivent?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just like most other companies, you're always looking to stay current with the technologies that are coming out. And, one of the biggest things that, we hear about is AI and development, and how can we leverage that in our community of practice to help, once again, increase that development productivity and help to move those products along. And so there's a lot of things, new features rolling out within the different technologies that I think we're trying to leverage currently to make sure that once again reduces that time for developers to move forward.
So this is developers leveraging LLMs or AI APIs to build apps. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Along with, really focusing, our company really focuses on the product model. And so trying to make sure, looking at your applications of the product, and, we can leverage AI in that fact, because we can start to do updates and use AI to help modernize that and keep those, downtimes to a minimum.
Very cool. Well, listen, thanks for the time today, and looking forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, what a day. So many announcements, and there's even more announcements to be made throughout the day. But let's recap about some of the highlights of the announcements we made going through that modern developer lifecycle phases of the modern API platform. First, around the build lifecycle, we announced Kong Insomnia 10 with its new AI runner, Collection Runner Unlimited. We announced Kong Connect serverless gateways, which gives access instantly to a gateway to developers for POCs, experiments, tests. On the run phase, we introduced Kong Gateway 3.8, one of the biggest Kong Gateway announcements in a long time, with incremental configuration change, Confluence certification, open telemetry expansion, and more. We also announced that Kong Connect's dedicated cloud gateways now supports Azure and a number of new regions. And then on the govern phase, we announced advanced analytics, which enables you with precision troubleshooting, instant troubleshooting with all the context of an API, And then we announced Konnect's service catalog, which enables you to discover your dark matter APIs and be able to manage them, provide 360 developer view on all of them. That brings us to the end of the keynote here, product keynote. Please enjoy the rest of the sessions at the API Summit today, and until next time.